Welcome elected members, staff, guests and members of the public to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 12th of March 2025. Can I just give a reminder to ask you to turn off your phones or put them on silent? I declare the meeting opened at 5:32. Apologies, we were waiting for Councillor Beecroft, who is joining us online. The City of Busselton acknowledges the Wurundjeri and Bibbulmun people as the traditional custodians of this region and pays its respects to elders past and present. This meeting is being audio recorded for minute-taking purposes and is also being live streamed on the City of Busselton YouTube channel. The prayer this evening will be read out by Pastor Tony Peake from Horizon Church, Busselton. Welcome, Pastor Peake.
Good evening, councillors and Mr CEO and ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to pray. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the opportunity this evening to pray and to seek your blessing upon this meeting. I thank you that even though we live in a world that is often unsettling, we can find lasting hope and peace in Christ. Father, we come before you this evening with thanksgiving, recognising your love, your grace, your provision and your protection. I thank you personally that you know each one here in this room, our families and every citizen of this beautiful city of Busselton and the region. I thank you this evening for our Mayor, our CEO, our council members and the staff. And I give thanks for the way of their diligent service that they have chosen to take up on behalf of our community. I also thank you for our first responders, our hospital staff, our police, our business community and schools, and all those who work so hard to make this place we call home such a wonderful city and region. And I ask that you would bless them. And so I pray that you would be honoured tonight through the discussions and outcomes of this council meeting, and that your blessing would rest upon it. I pray for your kingdom to come and your will to be done in this city and region as it is in heaven. I pray for wisdom, for strength and for courage to do what is right and good for all citizens. And may the best interests of the community be kept in mind. I ask this all in the name of Jesus, who alone is our strength, our hope and our peace. Amen.
Shouldn't be too long a meeting tonight, but you never know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Once again, I have attendance from Councillor Beecroft, who's online remotely. I have apologies from the Mayor, and I have no leave of absence from any of the councillors. As I'm chairing tonight, I have an opportunity to make an announcement of the presiding member. Last night I received news of the death of a friend. Darren Kinnaman was a long-standing resident of Busselton and a lovable larrikin. I met Darren and his wife in 1997 when his daughter and my daughter became inseparable friends when we moved to Busselton. Darren was larger than life and will live on in infamy, as was his character. I saw Darren just a few weeks ago. He was at the pub and was contemplating his journey home after a little tipple on an e-bike. In the end, it was the combination last Friday that was the cause of his death. Darren was 56, as was my father when he passed away, and it is far too young. May he rest in peace, and I offer my condolences to his family and friends. I bring you this information not to put a depressing mood on the meeting, but believe it would be a good opportunity to give a loved one, especially one who you haven't seen or spoken to for a while, to give them a call, visit them, a kiss or a hug tonight, because life is tenuous. Disclosures of interest. Tonight on item 12.1, I have a financial interest from Councillor McNish, and I will be declaring a proximity interest. Disclosures will be read out prior to consideration of the item. And as I will be making a disclosure, I will seek a nomination for someone to assume the chair while I leave the room. Do I have any? Councillor Love? Councillor Lee? Councillor Love. In that case, I will put it to a vote. How are we going to do this? Yeah. So, do I move? Shall I move it? Yes. I will move that Councillor Lee be the acting chair. acting, yeah. An assumption of the chair when I leave the room. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Craig? Anyone against? No? All those in favour? That is unanimous. Question time for the public. Do I have anybody that would like to ask a question? Please. Right. Oh, okay. Okay. So I will read out the previous questions? Oh, okay. Responses to previous questions will be displayed on the screen, and they will be included in the minutes of today's meetings. So do you want me to read them out? No? So these people have got bookings. Yes, okay. So this is what's on the screen now. Is right. Last meeting. Okay. So it's now question time, is that what you're saying? No. If you roll over, now you can start here. We've got 2 bookings. Right, okay. So I have a couple of people that have registered in advance. Do I have Miss Brianna Gowan? Oh, can I read the question out if they're not here? You can. The other thing we can do, sorry, Mr. White, that's we can respond to those if you prefer, Madam Chair, but if you'd like to read it out, it's fine. Ms Gowan's question was, what will be done about trucks and heavy vehicles used on Lehman Road? Once the roadworks have completed, will the council use signage and notifications to divert commercial traffic to the highway? And the response is, no semi-trailer and smaller trucks are as of right vehicles and can use Lehman Road without any restrictions or specific approvals. Mr. Rodney Nelson had a question. Is Mr. Nelson here? Mr. Nelson, would you like to come forward? Are you happy for me to read the question, or would you? Okay. With regards to the upcoming meeting covering short-term stay, if passed, this will have a significant impact on my property. Question 1, will there be exceptions if the proposal is passed? And the response, for those dwellings with a current approval for holiday home or unhosted short-term rental accommodation, the approval will continue to be valid to that property as a non-conforming land use. For those looking to seek approval for the unhosted STRA within a non-preferred area, the City is unlikely to recommend support for a proposal as it would be contrary to the objectives of the policy. Question 2. How can the Council justify restricting access to this type of badly needed accommodation? Answer. Council are considering the matter tonight based on the information that is provided in the officer report and consultation. Question 3. With the direct flights to Busselton from Perth and the eastern states, how does the Council propose to accommodate the influx of visitors? Response. There are a variety of accommodation options available within the City of Busselton, including short-term stay, hotels, motels, resorts and chalets that cater to the short-term lodging needs of visitors. Do I have any further questions?
Can I just expand a little bit on that, please?
Come forward. I just remind you that it's question time, so if you can...
Very brief.
Great.
I guess that's currently now you're saying that there's sufficient, but with the mooted Queensland, Singapore, Bali routes coming in, is that going to be the case? And secondly, isn't the Mines and Metals Department now taking over administration of the short-term stay sort of scenarios and doesn't fall into their purview? Or have I got that wrong? Was it still council?
The government have taken on a register of these types of accommodation, but that's about all. I'll defer to the CEO to expand on that.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And Mr Barber might want to jump in on this one as well. So yes, there is an element of the state government taking control of certain areas of the short-term holiday accommodation, but there is also the scheme within a local government in the regional areas that are able to put in controls in place to help with managing short-term rental accommodation. So it's a bit of both. So that's the reason that Council's considering one of these elements of it tonight.
Do I have any further questions? Come forward. Here you go, Stuart. If you say your name and suburb, please.
My name is Stuart Anderson. I'm a resident ratepayer of Busselton. I apologise tonight. The questions I'm going to ask are not to do with what's on the agenda. It's a question without notice, if that's okay.
Sure.
My question is this council aware that the Busselton War Memorial is still an active memorial? And 2, is the Busselton Council aware that there's members in the community who would like to hold a service on Anzac Day at the original War Memorial? The reason I say that is because it's still an active memorial. And there's members in the community who have got relatives on that memorial. They would like to pay homage to those people on that memorial. Plus, Rotary Park doesn't provide facilities for those ashes that are interned in the memorial wall at the original memorial. Plus, there's no homage, no recognition for the aircraft crew that was lost from Busselton at the new memorial. And so that's why I'm asking tonight for this council to allow or give consent for a service to be held at the original War Memorial.
I can't speak on behalf of the council, but I would have thought it is an active memorial, but I'll defer to the CEO to ask. I would have thought that it's a public park and that you can hold an event there, but I'll defer to the CEO.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. So generally we'd be looking for applications, which I think you did, Mr Anderson, absolutely, which was considered because there already is an event on that day at the existing memorial. It was supporting the event that was already put on. So it wasn't actually improving 2 separate ones, would be dissipating some of the activities and events across. So the decision was made to support the event that's already at the War Memorial that was planned.
Understand that, but this is a separate issue. The memorial that's held at Rotary Park is an RSL memorial, and the community with the Busselton Memorial, the original one is a community memorial, and we want to hold a service there. I know you have stated before that it's divisional, that it divides the community. I know you understand that, but that division wasn't caused by the community. That division was caused by an enclave group, a small enclave group, and a misguided, sounds my previous mayor.
Mr Anderson, I'll just stop you there. You can go and hold a meeting there if you like, a gathering. There's absolutely, it's a public park.
We're looking for endorsement from the council to hold it.
Well, it would have to come via a notice of motion, I would suggest.
So can I get a motion tonight?
No, it doesn't work that way.
I'd like to elaborate on it, but I just as question time, so I don't want to actually have I've only got a short time span. I know you've been busy today, so I'm actually respectfully requesting that, you know, can we have this opportunity to have a service of that memorial? I did get advice from the National Department of Defence Veteran Affairs. They did say because it's an active memorial, we're quite entitled as a community to hold a service at that memorial.
Absolutely. The CEO has just said he would be happy to talk to you after the meeting.
Okay.
Or maybe in the next few days on that. But you are, once again, perfectly entitled to gather in the park and have a separate gathering if that's what you wish.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Ms Walsh, would you like to come forward? Whilst I do know where you live, would you like to tell the rest of the community?
Infamy. Jill Walsh, Busselton. My question this evening is to all of council, and I do have a slight preamble, so with the chair's permission.
Make it quick.
Okay. So it's in relation to the holiday homes, in particular the officer's comment in tonight's debate that stated that the area between Ford Road and Guerin Street and Marine Terrace and Lehman Road geograph be excluded from holiday homes because it's not an area with significant tourism appeal or amenities. I managed 3 short-term properties here some years ago, and one of them is located within those boundaries, and it was very popular with farming families during the summer. Most consisted of families with mum and dad and 3 or 4 small children. They would forward book in advance each year, and one of the critical elements for them was being able to prepare meals for children and not have to eat takeaways throughout their 2-week or 3-week holiday. So during the winter, the property was popular with construction companies needing to accommodate several staff at a time or for varying periods. Local companies booked us almost on a continuous basis with a number of different staff changing from month to month. These types of arrangements cannot easily be made through real estate agents or other accommodation options. Holiday homes do have a place in the regional economy. If you do not provide appropriate accommodation for young families in our region, you are depriving the local economy of much needed income during the busy season, and removing this option could be viewed as a bit mean-spirited. However, not providing flexible and financially viable accommodation options to local business and vital construction teams and tradies, etc., could result in us all paying much more because the additional costs will be passed on to the consumer of expensive accommodation and restaurant meals. And most likely those people will be local people that the costs passed on to. Any changes in these boundaries may result in the unintended consequence of adversely affecting local business and the livelihoods of individuals, and that should not be taken lightly.
That's a very long preamble. Have you got a question coming?
Now the question. My question is, whilst contemplating your decision on this matter tonight, Would all councillors please keep in mind that this is not just about the stereotypical overseas and domestic tourists being accommodated in holiday homes. This is also about the need for flexible and effective short-term housing for those who need it too. Thank you.
Did you want an answer to that question, or you're? Yeah, I know. I agree.
It's for everybody.
Okay, that's it. I'm not sure it was a question, but.
Maybe if I can help. Yeah, I'm sure councillors will take what you've said into consideration, Ms Walsh.
Do I have any further questions? Dr Dickey, and then I have another question over here. Questions, Dr Dickey?
Yes,
Questions.
only a very short preamble. Only a short preamble. Andrew Dickey from Busselton. An article in the Daily Mail newspaper on March 5th reported that the former CEO of Busselton, Mr Mike Archer, was facing allegations of sexual misconduct at Shell Harbour City Council and has been stood down from his job as CEO there by the Shell Harbour councillors. There were multiple complaints from at least 10 council staff members who alleged that Mr Archer had sexually touched, kissed and caressed a junior council staff member who was less than half his age. My question is, was Mr Archer ever accused of sexual misconduct or sexual harassment while he was the CEO of Busselton Council?
I will defer that question to the CEO because I think it's allegations at this stage. Mr CEO?
The answer's no, and I'd probably highlight that any allegations relating to the CEO at Shell Harbour really are a matter for the Shell Harbour City Council and not the City of Busselton.
Yes, and I was asking about whether he faced
so
any...
the answer is no.
Right,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you. Mariah, would you like to come up? Welcome.
Oh, did I turn it off? Oh, there you go. Well, that's really loud. It's Mariah Greer from Chapman Hill. I've got three questions. One is in regards to what Stuart was saying before. I did go to a ceremony that he prepared last year on Anzac Day, and it was really sad watching everyone at the new memorial and no one at the old memorial. And I feel like as a community, we would all be quite happy to go to the old one first and then the new one. We could just walk down, it's like literally down the road, and celebrate both. It just seems really sad. So I was hoping that we could consider that in a motion, like starting at one place and then finishing at another and making a parade out of it.
I'm sure if a councillor wants to put up that motion, then it will be considered.
Cool. That was my first question. My second one is, and I probably might have already gotten an answer, but I haven't seen it. On the annual general meeting, I asked about how much money we had spent on lawyers in regards to John Forrest, and I was wondering whether or not we have that answer, because I haven't seen it.
And I think that's... No, we still don't have that information yet. When we do, so yeah, not avoiding the question, Scoria, but definitely pulling that together, and we can get that to you when we can.
No worries, that's great. And then the last question is in regards to the Airbnbs. Obviously, for me, it's all supply and demand, and it seems like a lot of people don't want them near their house. We have 3 people on our street, which is all rural blocks between 50 to 100 acres, wanting to put second residence on their property, and most of them want to rent it long-term for local residents, and we've been told we can't do it. So is the city going to do more things to help supply more housing in the city of Busselton besides just saying you can't have it in this area, which then means you're going to have more Airbnbs and an over-representation of it in other areas, which is not fair for people living in those other areas? So my question is, what is the plan about increasing the supply of houses in the city of Busselton?
I don't have an answer to that question. I'm going to defer to the CEO, and I reckon he wouldn't have an answer to that question either.
The supply of houses, if it's a question, but can I just clarify? So it's about the short-term rental accommodation or houses in general?
Just housing in general. Like, obviously we don't have rentals because there's a supply and demand issue, and we could have 3 more houses on my street, just my street, but we're not allowed to.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mr Barber might jump in here shortly, but the answer to that one is through the scheme, making sure that you've got areas of land available for development and subdivision into the future as well. So what we're dealing with here in the city of Busselton is obviously very, very fast growth, and you need to make sure that you've got your scheme and your land use ready for that future growth into the future, which is what the council is currently working on at the moment. I understand that potentially in the draft scheme that there's some ideas around dwellings in the rural areas, but I'm not sure if that's an additional dwelling, Mr Barber, is that correct?
Through Deputy Mayor, that is something that was considered at the council workshop on the scheme recently, and that will be coming back through the process when it comes back up to council.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That's it.
Councillor Love has a question.
Oh, okay.
Through the chair, Mrs. Greer, I would highly suggest keeping an eye out on when the local planning scheme 22 does get sent to the minister and is eventually released for advertising, for public consultation, that yourself and other community members that are looking at wanting additional dwellings on rural residential properties, put in your submissions and your commentary, because it is something that council has talked about, but we have only ever discussed it in like an informal manner, and we do need to be advised by the community if that is the community's desire.
Yeah.
And I know myself personally and other councillors have said if we get that feedback from the community, we would like to push that for that, but we don't want to push for that without having that feedback from the community.
Just to clarify, we're getting community consultation before it goes to the minister, the new scheme? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, great. Thank you.
No, sorry. Right, no.
It doesn't get...
It doesn't get re-advertised before it goes to the minister. No.
So, but do we get an input as a community and then it goes to the minister?
No.
No. So we would then, everyone would have to put an input on it now before it goes to the minister?
So,
It's quite a lengthy process. Director Barber's probably best for it. Planning's always fun.
Yeah.
Director Barber?
Through Deputy Mayor, for a scheme to be advertised, it
Yep.
requires the minister's consent. So it goes to the minister. Once the minister consents to advertise, it goes out for public consultation, and then the public can make their comments on it. Submissions are received, and then the council considers those submissions and any modifications to that scheme before it goes back to the minister for approval.
So if we wanted to make sure we got what we wanted before it went to the minister, we would be emailing the city now requesting that as a community?
There's no formal process, through the Deputy Mayor, there's no formal process for that.
Yeah.
The regulations require that for a scheme to be advertised, it needs to go to the minister for consent first.
Okay, no worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Ms Shackleton, would you like to come forward? And tell us where you live.
I live in Abbey. My name's Michelle Shackleton. Just a very quick one. Again, on the question of Anzac Day, I was part of that small group of people that wanted to respect the original memorial last year. And when we got there, somebody had tied zip ties all over the flagpole so that it couldn't be used. And we had had permission to use it. Is that... I'm pretty sure it was the mob from RSL. Can they be asked to keep their zip ties at home and not to interfere with it?
I wasn't aware of the zip ties, but we do have staff around on Anzac Day, and I'm happy for us to keep an eye on the public infrastructure that's not being
Yep, that'd be
filled.
lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions? Mr Glover. Hi.
Hi there, how you going? Just a couple of questions. Thanks for your response as well there, Tony, with the questions. So sort of following on what Mariah was saying, with regards to significant decisions that are being made in the community, with regards to the mitigation work that's going to be going on the coast. Is there going to be any public consultation based from a local knowledge perspective? Because I feel that knowledge, because people have been living here a long time, understand the coastline, and I think that would be valuable.
On which section of the coast are you talking about?
Well, the King Street, the questions raised from last week with regards to that information.
CEO?
Yeah, I mean, that project's currently underway, so it's probably past the point of public consultation at the moment. Future public consultation on future works could occur, so that might be something we could look at from there. I think, is that where your question was going around being involved in future coastal works?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, before those things get to go ahead, was there an opportunity for public consultation?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh,
I can look into that, I believe so. Okay,
great. And based around the question process, with due process and with questions that are brought to the council, with questions raised and responded, what is the due process with regards to response times? Is there a specific format that you follow?
Yeah, so perhaps taking your previous questions as a response is that some of that probably requires some clarification, which was in part of my response was around perhaps we can meet to clarify some of that as well. The process is that if the answer can be given on the night, it's given on the night and placed in the minutes. If it's not able to be given on the night and further research is required, then we take it on notice, do the work, and then come back to you as soon as we can, with the responses being at the next available meeting.
Yeah, because we don't mind a delayed response as long as the response is obviously given and it's well fleshed out. So don't feel the pressure in any way.
No, that's certainly the intention of public question time, that if it can't be answered on the night, that gives it the time to go away, do the investigation and come back to you with the answer.
All right, great. Thanks for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
No further questions? Come forward. Say your name and address, please, Jane.
Jane Bennett, Yogenup. I've just got a question about the coastal works. Just in sort of reference to what Darren's saying about the locals having sort of experience watching what's happened over the years. I often am in the geograph area along the beachfront there. There's been quite a lot of tree vegetation taken over years that they've been trying to revegetate there. And what I've noticed is the green corflute covers, in particular, they end up perishing and there's plastic being distributed everywhere. And I don't know if anybody follows up with any sort of maintenance, and I'm not sure if that's going to be happening with this lot of coastal works, but that most of the trees die. There's plastic distributed everywhere and there doesn't seem to be any maintenance. And the other thing that we have observed over the years is that the path, the bike path, has actually been broken by the water trucks that are driving along. So these are things that are important, and I'm just wondering if you can maybe look into those things moving forward to the next lot of works that are being undertaken.
That's operational, Mr. CEO. Would you like to answer?
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, so we're looking at that from a maintenance perspective. I think it was a question asked by another member of the public as well, so we'll make sure we'll keep an eye on that as well. Any damage that's been done, we'll in the correct time frame, we'll get back to repairing that as well, and we'll definitely keep an eye on that. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and just actually another question, the Norfolk pines that are being planted along the front there, I know that the residents receive some sort of notification about that, and I'm wondering if they're going to be continued to be planted in the spaces where they aren't, which is about Wakeford Street down towards the Sea Rescue.
Yeah, I'd probably have to take that on notice to be sure about the answer. Thanks, Mrs. Bennett. So I'll check that and we can get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Come forward, please. Your name and suburb, please, sir.
Cleet Matthews, Broadwater. Just a question without notice. I've tried for about 5 years to get a slip lane or access on Busselton Highway from Broadwater Boulevard. I've been riding on and off for 5 years, put plans in, put designs in, put proposals in. It's now with the traffic, because of the new developments further down towards Abbey, it's virtually impossible to get out. You can't turn right from Broadwater Boulevard onto Busselton Highway nearly any time of the day. The traffic with the lights are now synced back to Fairway Drive, so when one finishes, the other one starts. And there's no slip lane either, that people are going over the sand and scrub to turn left. I've been writing to the planning department, the council, the roads area, anywhere I can think of, and I've got generally the answer is, we don't have any money, it's not in the 5-year plan, oh, there might be a roundabout in front of it, you know, we might fly to the moon, I don't know. But it's getting to the ridiculous stage because the problems are that in the mornings there's access required, particularly for older people, to the Broadwater Medical Centre, which adjoins that corner. I have over the years got at least the school buses changed from parking right in front of the Broadwater Boulevard back along Broadwater Boulevard instead of being in front of the health service. How or when or what proposal is there, not just for Broadwater Boulevard, but for the added increase of traffic that's now on Busselton Highway that makes it virtually impossible to access that road? You've really got to go alternative rat routes to get anywhere. And does the council have a plan in place for, while it's looking at regional development and land development of project offices and proposals such as Abbey South, the area before the Picture Theatre, etc., do they not consider road access for the locals? And now that is the only feeder road that basically is able to, because of the setup of that new development in Broadwater, to actually get back onto the road. And we have accidents on a regular basis. So that's my question without notice. Need to know the process and what the council's thinking is. Thank you very much.
We're happy to take that on notice because
Thank you very much.
There's quite a bit in that question.
5 years of frustration, I suppose.
So one of the issues that the council have been grappling with is the Vass to Dunsborough link, which was touted.
It's supposed to happen 8 years ago.
It was touted 15 to 20 years ago.
It's supposed to be finished 8 years ago.
Yes, and so the government have put it on hold. It's not a local government.
Yeah, well, we're looking now at 12 years of Labor, so don't expect any money.
Absolutely, but we have been...
Sorry to be a cynic, but I'm into politics.
No, I absolutely agree with you. But as far as the other planning is concerned, I'm not sure. I don't think councillors... We'll take it on notice and we'll...
Thank you very much.
We'll get you a response.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And with the expansion of the nearby caravan park there and road accesses, that they all go in the wrong access road and they go in the retirement village. There's accidents all the time. While minor, they're regular accidents. So thank you very much, Council, for listening to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms Matthews. Any further questions? No. Petitions, I have none. And presentations by parties with an interest. I have Tegan Wild, a business owner and director of Astra, an Astra board member, on item 12.1. Tegan, would you like to come forward? Thanks, Tegan. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction. As Anne mentioned, I'm a board member for Astra, Australian Short-Term Rental Association, so I've come here with my hat on for that, as well as a business owner for Geograph Holiday Homes. Being part of a real estate business for the last 10 years with my husband, 15 years, 20 years, a local resident, someone who lives in the area, has family in the area, and part of the local sporting groups, as well as having 40 employees who live locally as well that I support. So basically, representing from ASTRA, the summary for the proposed changes to the preferred and non-preferred area. We believe this will create a two-tiered economy and have housing impact. Implementing preferred and non-preferred areas for short-term will create a two-tiered economy in Busselton, where when the local airport opens for international and interstate flights, investors will outbid locals to purchase property in preferred areas for holiday accommodation. This will drive up property prices in beachside zones and may not increase values at the same rate in the non-preferred areas. The preferred areas will see a decline in local community environment as properties are increasingly used for holiday stays, and this trend has already occurred in Byron Bay, which they have data on. There is no proven correlation between STR restrictions and housing availability and affordability. Independent research by reports of Ubis in 2023 and 2024, I have the report here if anybody would like it, indicates no consistent relationship between non-hosted STR and housing affordability. STR properties make up only 1% of total housing stock across Australia. Restricting STR will not increase housing stock for owner-occupiers or long-term rentals, and has been proven not to the solution to housing affordability. In the JWS Byron research released last month, 95% of owners in the Byron Shire indicated they would not put their property on the long-term market as they use it themselves. After surveying my owners, the same statistics were produced. Owners would not change their homes to long-term as they wish to use the property themselves. And other property owners would rather leave their holiday homes vacant than rent long-term due to the risks involved. For example, an owner on Timbermill Crescent I spoke to last week experienced $30,000 in damages from 2 tenants over 4 years, and they would rather have their home vacant if STR is not permitted and such they can use it themselves. So according to local real estate data, only 1 in 20 home sales purchased is for long-term rental market, 1 in 20 purchased for holiday, the rest are acquired by owner-occupiers. And one of the main factors contributing to the decrease in available rentals in the region is investors selling their properties due to the strong sales market, with most buyers choosing to occupy the homes themselves after moving to the area, with a large number of people buying homes to move to the area rather than locals buying houses to live in the area. And has the City of Busselton surveyed property owners to understand why they choose to have their investment property as short-term or long-term? And additionally, has any research been conducted to identify the reasons for a decline in investors opting to have their property as long-term rentals? For the worker accommodation, as what mentioned previously, STR properties are vital for accommodating short-term workers in construction, healthcare, NBN and other sectors. 40% of our bookings currently are for these workers, with contract ranging from 2 days to 2 months. These businesses will put their workers in houses rather than hotels and motels for comfort for their workers while they're away, and they usually do not wish to sign up to a 12-month lease as that's not the length of their contract for the area and the works. Local businesses and essential service providers rely on affordable non-beachside properties to house their staff. Limiting STR availability would increase costs, reduce accommodation options for these workers, which would negatively impact the local economy with project blowouts, additional costs on the businesses that will be passed on to clients that include locals as well as government departments. As mentioned, my business employs 40 to 45 locals in cleaning and administration. We provide vital financial and emotional support to local mums returning to the workforce, with many gaining the confidence through us to further advance to their new jobs. There's also market saturation and natural regulation. The STR supply will naturally reach capacity as the market saturates. When nightly rates drops and costs increase, owners who rely on consistent income will switch their holiday home to long-term rentals or sell their properties. This trend already has been visible in some of my listing, where owners have been leaving the short-term market for these reasons or selling their properties, which have been then purchased by owner-occupiers. At the public submission last week, it was mentioned about waste management, and we agree with the public submission that holiday homes should have 2 waste collection bins. This cost should be covered by the additional rates STR owners already pay for using their homes for the same purpose as ratepayers do. And there was also mention about handling of noise complaints. We manage the noise complaints by contacting staff, and we have phone contact 24/7. However, due to health and safety risks, just like long-term rental management, We would never ask staff or myself to attend a property with an active noise or party complaint. In these cases, we advise neighbours to contact the police, who are trained authority to manage community disturbances, and guests are subsequently evicted the following day if warranted. Currently, we have received minimal noise complaints after 10 p.m. We do have a call log of all out-of-hours calls, and emails are followed up with a voice recording. However, there are concerns that neighbours are reporting guests for properties for noise during the day or evening, even when guests who have paid to enjoy a holiday in the region are not causing any disturbance. If the property were occupied by an owner or a long-term tenant, it is unlikely these complaints would be made, suggesting holiday homes are unfairly targeted due to preconceived bias.
Tegan, do you have much more to go?
Nope.
Great. Thank you.
Really quick. So ASTRA's position is opposition to the non-preferred zone. This policy artificially creates a two-tiered housing market, driving up costs for users while restricting homeowners' rights. STR represents a small portion of housing stock and does not displace long-term rental availability. Uncertainty from non-preferred zones discourage investment and undermines community trust. There is support for governance and regulations. We advocate and support the government register and the introduction of a statewide code of conduct. And regarding the meetings that I had with the ministers and DMIRS last year, they indicated the primary purpose of the registration process is to collect data on the number of listings and accommodation occupancy across WA. And once sufficient data is gathered, further assessments will be made. This suggests that councils may be acting prematurely by adjusting local planning policies, while DMIRS continues to collect data over the next 12 months for the entire STR industry in WA. So in conclusion, STR plays a vital role in Busselton's economy by supporting both tourism and essential workers. Over-regulating this sector risks damaging the local economy and limiting accommodation options and creating inequities in the property market. And if any of the council would like a copy of the report by UBIS or the Byron Bay report, I have physical copies here, or I can email them out to you.
I think councillors would appreciate a copy of the report. If you'd email it, that'd be great. Or maybe even just... Yeah. Governance at Busselton with
Governance,
the...
okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Tegan. Any questions of Tegan? No questions. I also have listed Yvonne Innes for item 12.3. Yep. Would you like to come up, Yvonne?
Well, that's a bit of a hard act. Mine's very low, Blair. Can I put this into this? Does it work?
No.
Doesn't work?
I don't think we're prepared for that one because we're online as well, I think.
Okay. I can give it to you and you can have a look at it, what I'm talking about.
No.
No?
Yeah, the system doesn't work that way.
All right, okay.
Apologies.
Oh, somebody said you did have a laptop that I could stick it in when I asked earlier.
Security doesn't allow us.
Ah.
What we can do is perhaps you can email that to us.
Yes,
well.
I can,
yes.
sir.
Yeah, apologies for that.
All right, so, 1, 2, oh, lost a bit of paper en route. So I wanted to discuss and hosted the topic of the night, and hosted accommodation. So the area that I was looking at to add to the restricted zone was the area bound by Gurin, Marine Terrace, along Marine Terrace and down, I knew I'd forget the name straight away, that little area there. Now, the reason you might ask why. So, for those of you who don't go up that area, because you don't go unless you're going to see somebody up there, is there's the redevelopment of the Busselton Beach Resort. Now, the Busselton Beach Resort in its heyday was a 32-villa resort. Is that going in?
Apologies. I forgot we had our IT guru in the back of the room, so we've been able to put that up for you.
Yes. This one here, is it? Yes. Good on you. So that's the area I've marked out there. So, yes, so the old one was 32 villas, mainly 2x1s, and they had 5 3x1s, so approximately 140 guests. The new Busselton Resort is going to have 51 units, and they're massive, 3 bedrooms by 2. So anywhere between 408 and 510 guests is my estimate, because I phoned the city and they didn't have the actual numbers. So a conservative increase of about 450 to 500 guests in that area. Now, why would that impact us? Well, in that little area there, people eventually get fed up, believe it or not, of looking at the ocean. And you would think, oh, well, they'll be down there, they'll go to the beach, they'll get the cyclopath into town. But what they tend to do is they'll go out for the day, then they come home, and then they hang around the pool, and then they get fed up of that. What we find in that little area is that we have a lot of visitors who exercise round our streets. The kids and their bikes come round the streets. The old Busselton Resort used to lend people bikes, so they'd be cycling in and out. I presume these days now it'll all be, you know, the scooters. So we're not saying we're adverse to visitors there, because we love them, and they all come and talk about our gardens, and, you know, we chat about where they're from and all of that. But it's quite an increase in number. So we have pushchair, scooter. We put up with the schoolies, and we love having them up there for the week, which is great. And of course, they use our park in Gurin, so we have a lovely park there, which has got playground and everything, so the kids all play in there. So a lot of the accommodation, people from that accommodation come into our little residential area there. So, I mean, we'll always continue to support them coming in. It's just the the large increase of numbers. So my proposal is to keep this area free from allowing unhosted Airbnbs. We obviously still we have a few along Marine Terrace, but within that area we have a couple of hosted Airbnbs, which is fine. I don't think anybody in that area has got any problem with the hosted Airbnbs. And we'd like to maintain that small residential ambience there. The history of the Busselton Beach Resort was it was actually out of town when it was built, you know, so none of these houses were there. But this little area here was the next lot of houses to be built, and it's a nice little area. It's got lovely gardens, you know, that sort of thing. Most of us are sort of my age and older, but we do have some families scattered throughout that area, and of course in the holidays we have all our own grandkids and everybody down as well. So the other thing about that now is that across the road we're going to have a huge development with Newport, so there's going to be a lot of housing there, probably a lot of Airbnb housing there, because there's such a lot in Port Geographe itself. So that will then cover on to being more Airbnb accommodation in Newport as time goes on. So we'll have all that housing coming through to access the beach, which, you know, obviously people that have lived up there have fought for years to get a beach, and now we actually have one, and we're quite willing to share it with visitors. You know, but that was my proposal, to add that bit in to unhosted, not to have unhosted, because of the increase in traffic we're going to have once the resort's finished. I'll just give you a quick look. That's the old resort, so you can see it didn't have any real impact, you know, in the area. It sort of settled into the area quite nicely. This is the new one. So massive, massive difference in, you know, architecture, the whole work. So it's, you know, quite an impressive area now. It will have a cafe, so there'll be folk coming up for that, So that's just my proposal. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mrs. Ennis? So you're asking if that exclusion zone can be added into what is already being
because
considered?
we all do our bit for tourists up there, and we enjoy having them. This isn't about not having them. This is about having them, and we'll be having more.
Yeah.
You know.
Certainly the council could consider that. in their
you so
deliberation
much.
tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have anyone else who would like to make a presentation? No. Deputations, I've received no requests. Questions by members which due notice has been given, I have none. Do I have a mover for the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 26th of February? Councillor Love, do I have a seconder? Councillor Cagg, is there any opposition to those minutes? I put the motion. All those in favour? That's 8-0. Applications for leave of absence, I have none. Are there any requests? No. I have a recommendation for en bloc items for 11.1, 11.2, 11.3 and 11.4, and the officer recommendation for item 14.1 be adopted en bloc. Do I have a mover? Councillor McNish. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love. Is there any opposition? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried. 8 Love. Items for debate on 12.1 have, so I have somewhere here in this pile of documentation I have, yeah. Councillor McNish, do you wish to read your declaration of interest on item 12.1?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I declare a financial interest in item 12.1 as my existing approved use is being deleted and replaced, and relating to these proposed changes to the scheme may have detriments or benefits in terms of market competition. Given this interest, I will leave the meeting while the item is being considered.
I declare an impartiality interest in item 12.1 as I reside in FAS. As a consequence, there may be a perception that my impartiality on the matter may be affected. Given this interest, I will leave the meeting while this item is being considered. Councillor Lee, would you like to assume the chair, please?
So I've got to put the alternative first. Yep. Okay, agenda item 12.1, draft unhosted short-term rental accommodation local planning policy. Following consultation, we actually have an alternative to 12.1 by Councillor Cagg. Councillor Cagg, do you want to put your alternative recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to put the alternative recommendation forward as is written. It does include one that was brought up by Councillor Cox, which I have included in my recommendation. Thank you.
So, So just to be clear, the alternate that councillor Cox put forward is now included with councillor Case. Okay, thank you. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, councillor Love. Is there any opposition to this motion? Councillor Beecroft? No opposition? No opposition. No, lovely. So if there's no opposition, I'll put the motion forward. All those in favour? 6. Carried 6-0. Does that meet our majority? That meets our majority? Yes, thank you. Is my work here done? My work here is done. Thank you very much, everybody.
We're going to go and have a sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so go there. So Val's got up.
Yes, sorry. We probably should have got councillor Reid to announce that one.
Do you want me to?
It's okay, because the gallery's here.
Okay.
It's fine.
All right, so
I'll move on to the alternative recommendation for item 12.2.
okay. So we move on now to item 12.2. Councillor Craig has an alternative recommendation. Councillor Craig, will you be moving that motion?
Yes, thank you, Ms Mayor. As written on the screen, I'd like to move that alternative. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love? Would you like to speak to that motion, Councillor Craig? Oh, is there any opposition to that motion?
I'd like to move an amendment. I'd like to move an amendment if I could, so.
So, Councillor Craig, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
Turn it off. How clever am I? My intent in this is pretty obvious in what I have written. So while the DAPERS, the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan, has been an ongoing document for many years, a lot of the items for action have been identified year after year, and many have not been able to be completed because there's been no budget assigned for the work to be done. Now, it's not only buildings and facilities that work has to be done, there has to be planning put in place to identify what needs to be done, what the priorities are, and in a lot of cases, consultants may need to be pulled in to identify what beach access areas are suitable for wheelchairs, what needs to be put in place. So the reason I'm asking for an amount of $100,000 in the draft 2025-26 budget and annually thereafter is to achieve what has been put in down as the work to be done year after year and hasn't been able to be commenced due to the lack of finance. So I ask councillors if you'd please support the Disability Access and Inclusion Plan projects that have been identified and put in as wanting to be completed in 2025, but in its current situation, there's no way that can be achieved. Our people with disabilities are important to us. They come along every time we do these and they cry out what they need, but they get to the stage where they're feeling like they're not being heard because what they're saying, and they're the only ones who know what they need, is not being heard. So I'm impelling people, councillors, to please support me on this. Thank you.
Councillor Love?
I fully back and support Councillor Craig in including this budgeted amount of $100,000 in the future draft budget. This is something that can always be discussed annually thereafter by council to see if we need further funding or less funding, if funding's going to be rolled over. I think it's been quite an oversight for the fact that council hasn't allocated a budget towards this. It's quite disheartening to hear of the fact that actions are getting pushed aside because there simply isn't a budget allocated towards this. I know that we do have building reserves budgets towards the capital work side of things for city-owned assets to make sure that we can try and ensure that everything is accessible and inclusive for the disability community. However, we do also need to keep in mind the fact that there's quite a lot of planning with it, but also the services that the city provides, or future services that the city could provide, because we are quite aware that there is a bit of a lack of service provision there for that community within the wider Busselton community. So I highly commend Councillor Craig for picking this up and putting in her alternative. Good work.
Speakers against?
Madam Chair, I wonder if you'd give me a ruling on whether this would be an appropriate thing to make an amendment to Part 2. I'm trying to make an amendment. I would leave it as is, but add to the end of it, and in doing so, also report, this is the CEO, report to include how best to ensure the council is assured the city complies with the national standards for disability services and that the compliance is sustained via an appropriate reporting and funding mechanism.
Can I ask a clarification, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Sorry, did I hear the word report and the CEO to provide a report? Yep. My advice is that it wouldn't be an amendment. That sounds like an alternative. It's an additional piece of work, probably a little bit outside of the scope of the original intent of that motion, would be my advice on that one.
So the intent of your motion?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, in that case, I'll seek your approval to withdraw the amendment, perhaps, and I might consider bringing it back at a later date, given it could be run in parallel, so it doesn't affect this item, if that's okay.
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you.
So, speakers for?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll rise to speak for this alternate recommendation. I also commend Councillor Craig for bringing this forward. I sit on this reference group. I've sat on this reference group for a couple of years, and these are a group of people in our community that are often overlooked. And it's not only referring to people in our community with disabilities, it's also senior citizens and people with mobility issues. It actually, a lot of the initiatives that come out of discussions from this group apply to a wide variety of people in our community, and I agree we have lots of discussions about what can be done, and a plan is put in place, but a lot of those things aren't then seen through to their fruition because of a lack of a budget. Last year we had a brilliant event, Play in the Bay, which was specifically designed for people with disabilities, neurodiverse people, a whole group of people in our community, and it was a fantastic event and it had no funding attached to it. And everybody that worked on that event volunteered their time. And I think that, as Councillor Love mentioned, not just the capital works, which we can fund through our building reserves, should be allocated to this. It's all the other things. It's getting consultants to come in and do work. So we've got so many good initiatives like beach access matting, a disabled taxi service. That is probably something that's required in the whole southwest, but we need to be able to afford to get a consultant to come in and do a business case and do some feasibility studies around what we can and can't do. And without a budget, that can't be achieved. And I think for all those people in our community, I think that the benefits that this will provide are immense. And I think that they will finally be able to think, okay, I'm participating, I'm giving you input, and I'm actually being heard. And that's what we're about. We're about listening to our community, all different sections of our community. And so, again, I commend Councillor Craig on bringing this forward, and I fully support the alternate recommendation. Thank you.
Speakers against? Speakers for? I'd actually like to speak quickly, and it's further to our discussion this afternoon about the forum that this group looks after, but that there is a formal process of delivering those things that need funding and the ideas that need to be brought to council. So I'd like to see that perhaps in your next meeting, that there is a way of delivering those issues and ideas and any notices of motion to the council. Thank you. Councillor Craig, would you like to close your argument?
Just that I'd like to thank those who have supported this very important disability access and inclusion plan activation by giving them a budget to carry out the works, and I'm sure that we'll be excited with what's achieved. Thank you.
Thank you. I put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried 8-0. Item 17.1, notice of motion, Kill Retreat water supply. I'd like to put the motion as on the screen.
Do I foreshadow an alternative?
Do I have a seconder?
You're going to have a seconder first. Yep, I'll second.
Thank you. Councillors, I wouldn't have thought that such a insipid notice of motion would have caused so much angst in the community. However, this is a good thing about council being able to put forward what the community wants. I think it's teased out some good possible outcomes. I would like to see the water supply just be put on. The motion is quite simple. There's no plan B. It's just a plan A, which came from a number of people in Kill Retreat. However, it has elicited some optional things that we can do, and I think if we can come to a solution as a concession for a concession, I think we might hit the jackpot. I don't want to see an exorbitant amount of money being spent on this. I simply want to see if the water can be turned on and it can water the park and the verges and go from there. So thank you. Councillor Love, as a seconder. Oh, lovely, lovely.
I would like to foreshadow an alternative, if I may.
Yes, please.
Sorry, I'll repeat that for the recording. I'd like to foreshadow an alternative that I think the staff have up. Yeah, I sent that to you, Sarah. Yeah. So I'll just read out my alternative, that the CEO investigate recommissioning the water supply from the dedicated bore for Keel Retreat if watering is required for the vegetation on the road reserves, including Keel Reserve, which is the park at the beginning of Keel Retreat. And in addition to that, the CEO, according to Parking Local Law 2026.8, commissions signage that would allow parking on the median strips with conditions that exclude caravans and boats from being parked permanently on the median strips. And my reasoning is that the residents in this area pay a specified area rate, which initially included the watering of verges and vegetation on reserves and median strips. There have been inconsistencies since 2007, and I'll refer you back to Councillor Ryan's motion for the details, with water supply and maintenance of infrastructure. With consideration to current environmental concerns, water is a finite resource and should be used sparingly and consciously whilst maintaining amenity. Both directions, in respect to the parking on the median strip, both directions of the carriageway are relatively narrow and parking on the road impacts flow of traffic. It is illegal to park on a curb or verge without the express permission of the owner, leaving little option for residents and visitors to park their cars safely if their driveway is full. Parking on the median strip poses no safety concerns nor impacts on flow of traffic. One of the residents who lives on Keel Retreat was a civil engineer and spent many years investigating road crashes for legal cases. So he's an expert in his field on looking at the safety of roads, and he has volunteered that information to me. It would not be conducive to have reticulation on the median strips and allow parking due to damage from cars to infrastructure. Currently, there are some residents who regularly water median strips with their own sprinklers and water, and the grass that is planted on the reserves requires minimal watering to sustain it. So currently, some of the residents are watering the reserve and they seem to be happy with that. And I think this might be a happy medium between allowing parking for visitors and residents who, a lot of the residents there, have visitors, they billet their houses and rooms for Ironman, for events that come down here. So there is a need for some parking at certain times of the year there. So hopefully this will strike a balance and we will be able to achieve the outcomes that the residents are looking for.
Do I have a speaker for?
I wanted to ask a question, but I think Councillor McNish might be.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think this is worthwhile, very worthwhile considering, but I would like to know how parked permanently on the median strips. Is that a day, a month, a year, permanently?
Good pickup.
So I spoke with Councillor Darby, and he said... Director Darby. I don't know if I just gave him a promotion or demotion. A demotion, yeah. And he was the one who suggested that we didn't want to have cars and boats and caravans parked there permanently, and I think that might be possibly an operational decision of how that is worded, how that is marked. I don't know, Mr. Barber.
Councillor Love, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Just with the wording of this, I think this would be to Mr. Noddle, the CEO. Would this, with how this is worded, just because I'm mindful that it's request the CEO to investigate, would you foresee this going out to the Port Geograph community for some consultation on this, particularly as part one? If we were to proceed down that route, it's going to have a financial and water resourcing impact on the wider Port Geograph community. And I'm just wanting your thoughts before we enter into debate, because I may potentially foreshadow an alternative.
Through the chair, I suppose, can I just say it's a foreshadowed alternative. We've probably gone down almost debate on this one.
That's my fault.
That's okay. So my reading of how this is worded is that city staff would investigate the recommissioning of the water supply, not necessarily at that community consultation point yet. It's actually getting into what's required and how do we get into it, etc. Part two of that too, I'd need to be checking the wording of that and how that fits in with the local law and whether the sign can be made up that is actually enforceable. Because if it's not enforceable, that would be something that would be, a wasted effort. So we'd need to look into that too and report back to council.
So, councillors, the motion that's on the table is my motion as it was written. Do I have any speakers against? Councillor Cox?
I will rise to speak against the original notice of motion, and purely because to reconnect the water supply to enable an accurate costing of any wiring damage requires the water supply to be wired, and the cost of it to be wired is in excess of $60,000. Therefore, I don't think that cost can be justified. I don't think that justifies the means. The cost doesn't justify the means. Therefore, I will be voting against this motion. And then we'll see how that goes after that. But yes, purely for that reason is that I think that the cost is excessive and you can't even turn it on without reinstalling the wiring. Thank you.
Speakers for? Speakers against?
I got in first.
Councillor McNish?
Yes, speaking against for exactly the same reasons. $60,000 is way too much to simply do an investigation to see if there are leaks somewhere. Perhaps we might do an air pressure test. Same outcome. And I would like to think that in the foreshadowed motion, that when the CEO reports back, if it gets up, if the CEO reports back, there is some clarification on the word permanent. Thank you.
Speakers for? Speakers against?
I'll be speaking against for similar reasons as voiced by Councillor McNish and Councillor Cox. As identified by the officers in their recommendation, alternatively, we could look at treatments that were similar to Lanyard Boulevard at a cost of $36,000 in comparison to over $60,000, just to see if this is a plausible and viable option. Or we could, as Councillor Lee has suggested in her alternative, also look at parking, how officers have recommended. I personally will always prefer this kind of decision actually being consulted with the community that it's going to be affecting, i.e. the residents of Port Geograph, because while we have heard from some affected residents living on Kill Retreat and some residents that are aware of this issue having been brought up onto their agenda or having been contacted by other councillors, we don't know what the wider community within Port Geograph, what their thoughts are, especially considering that they, from my understanding, the majority of the Port Geograph residents contribute to the SARS. And if we were to go down the avenue of reconnecting the water supply, it is going to have a flow-on effect on the resources and availability of the water supply for that area. So I personally would like to see this actually, before we choose any of these options, see that it goes out for public consultation for the Port Geograph residents. Thank you.
Any further speakers for? I'll use my right of reply. Councillor Love, just for your information, the Port Geograph Landowners Association have been consulting the general residents around there, and this is where it has emanated from. So the water supply issue has been a part of the Port Geograph Landowners Association on the agenda for years, and I believe the parking issue has come up probably maybe in the last 2 years because of the situation with the grass being planted there. So
Point of order. We had received emails from people that were part of the Port Geograph Land Association who had submitted emails saying that they hadn't been consulted. So
no, consulted on this issue, no, but on the issue of watering and on the issue of parking, they have. And I believe that the report was being misconstrued as well, that my motion was to install bollards and so on. So there was a little bit of misconstrued information going on there. But I don't think I have anything further to say. So I will put the motion. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried 8-0. Oh, sorry, lost 8-0. Therefore, Councillor Lee, your alternative, would you like to move it? And yes, would you like to move it? And do I have a seconder? Councillor McNish. Councillor Love, would you like to speak to your...
Councillor Lee.
Oh.
No, I don't have a lot to add from the reasons that I gave when I put the alternate motion. Suffice to say that I think that the parking issue and the watering issue are related, and they are both issues for the residents there, which is why I didn't support your motion, because I don't think it addresses both the issues that the residents are telling that they have.
Is there any opposition to this motion? Councillor McNish, would you like to speak?
Reserve my right.
Okay. Speakers against?
I'll just reiterate, I understand that the Deputy Mayor has said that she has been, that she's aware of the residents of Port Geograph being, having had discussions with the Port Geograph Land Association in regards to this matter. However, personal preference, I would always like to know that the city and the council have done their background work on actually consulting with the public for this, especially when I personally don't agree with option 1. I personally would have preferred looking at landscaping when it's going to be financially half of the cost compared to putting the water supply back on from the bore. But that is why I'll be opposing Councillor Lee's alternative as well still. Thank you.
Speakers for?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Deputy Mayor. Just given that this alternative, we've only just seen this alternative, can I just clarify, please, that with point 2, the parking local law commissions signage that will allow parking on the median strips. Does that mean that if the signage is commissioned, should residents park on the median strips, the ranger will not be called and they will not be fined? Is that action enough to prevent people from receiving fines if they park on the median?
6.8A of the local law is basically saying that if there is signage there that allows, then it can be done. But the wording of the signage is, I think, what Councillor Lee is trying to obtain here, which may be a little bit lacking.
Is there some wording we can insert just to get a little bit more clarification around that, Councillor Lee?
I deliberately left it a bit open after my conversation with Mr Darby, because I think that those kinds of signs have been put around the district to guide people, so they're better at knowing what needs to be said rather than me dictating what needs to be said.
Through the
I
chair,
think
could
that, sure.
Yeah, so normally we'd have a bit more time to have a look at, whether that does or doesn't actually have the legality or the legal standing that we'd probably need to be able to hold a fine. So we'd have to probably check that to be sure, but it seems to read that way when you read 6.8. My concern is, if you're asking me what that is probably more around excluding caravans and boats parked permanently on the median strips, because I'm not sure we restrict parking by type is my, off the top of my head, concern, and I probably need to look into it a bit more unless anyone else in the room, I'm not sure if that's what you were thinking there, Director Barber.
Could you add in the word allow vehicle parking on the median strips? Or
Through the Deputy Mayor, I think under the legislation, anything road registers is considered a vehicle. So a caravan's a vehicle, boat parking is a vehicle. It's usually that the way we limit it normally is that it's by the length of the bay, but this wouldn't be a line marked parking area. So we would need to look into it more. I couldn't give an answer right now how we would do it.
I suppose it would be no different to caravans and boats parked in a residential area in a street for months and months and months at a time. There would potentially be a complaint raised and maybe the ranger would be called to deal with that situation anyway.
Through the Deputy Mayor, I guess if we can't restrict the type and we don't have line marking or time restrictions, then it may be difficult to prevent boats or caravans being parked there permanently, and in which case we couldn't fine them because without
definition
line marking or time limits, I'm not sure how you control it.
Speakers 4.
Well, Madam Chair, I'd like to move an amendment to remove the number 2 dot request the CEO, remove those words and replace it with the word and, which means effectively that part 2 becomes something the CEO is investigating rather than implementing straight away.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, can we just get the wording of the amendment?
Okay, the number 2, gone, request, gone, gone, CEO, comma, gone, and replaced with the word and.
Just remove those 3 words.
Yeah. Let's go home. So I finish writing, it's not.
And do we, what about investigates signage, not commission, investigate?
I wonder whether we don't go that the council requests the CEO to investigate.
Yeah.
.1.
Yeah.
Recommissioning the water supply.
Yeah.
And I'm investigating the commissioning of signage.
Yeah, so get rid of that as well, and just so you're investigating signage, because we know it's that.
It would still make sense, and it's only really.
How do we want to do this?
Councillor McNish, could I make a suggestion that probably makes it flow, that might read okay, so that the council requests the CEO to investigate ... column 1 and 2. Yep. Okay.
So So we're going to change it on here now.
So the amendment.
Take that word commission out.
Councillor McNish, can I just confirm that that reads okay to what you were proposing in the amendment?
With your assurance, CEO, that the word permanently be focused on as to its implementability. I mean, if it's used currently, I'm not sure how that's policed. So, well done.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Councillor Lee? Would you like to speak to that amendment? Oh, Councillor McNish.
No, nothing further to add. As long as we...
Sorry, is there any opposition? Is there any opposition to that amendment? There being no opposition, I'll put the foreshadowed alternative. Now the substantial. So I'll put the amendment. All those in favour? That's carried 8-0. Now I put the substantive. Right. So is there any speakers against? Speakers against?
Yes.
Councillor Kennedy?
Yes, so I will speak against this motion as is, and I'll be foreshadowing that we remove point 1 of this motion. The reason I'm speaking against is because the substantive motion has raised a number of variables. You know, we've got people that want this and they want a landscaped area, they want a park, they want extra parking. So to really get to the bottom of it, we need extensive consultation. The water issue, we need to consult the whole Port Geograph area, and we have to work out what water do you want turned off so that we can water this median strip. Considering all that, I don't think it's an emergent priority of council. This has just seemed to have come out of nowhere. What we do know, though, is that watering this area will cost a lot. It sort of goes against our public open space using water-wise gardens. The consultation, because it does need to be extensive, that'll cost a lot of time as well. So currently, yes, I invite you all to vote against this motion and look at the foreshadowed one, which just removes point 1. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy. Speakers for? Speakers against? Councillor Lee, your right of reply?
I don't have a lot to add, except that the word investigate was very deliberate. So it was really purely to investigate, to have a look, to respond to the concerns of the residents that have contacted us and those that I've spoken to. So the investigation should unravel the details.
Thank you. I therefore put the motion. All those in favour? That's 6-0. The motion is... Oh, sorry, 6-2. The motion is carried. It was Councillor Love.
Maybe just ask me my hands.
All those... I put the motion. All those in favour? And against was Councillor Lee and... Oh, my God. Councillor Love and Kennedy. Okay, item 17.2, notice of motion from Councillor Andrew McNish, Strategic Infrastructure Planning. Councillor McNish, do you wish to move your motion?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Sorry, on the screen.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Kennedy? Councillor McNish, would you like to speak?
Just simply...
Is there any opposition to this motion? There being no opposition, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That item is carried 8-0. That was good. I didn't have to mention anybody's names or... Item 18, urgent item of business. There's no urgent business. I have a confidential item in accordance with section 5.32 of the Local Government Act. In order to maintain the confidentiality of this item, I will seek a decision to close the meeting to members of the public and all staff. Councillor Bearcroft, can you please confirm that you can maintain confidentiality for the closed part of the meeting?
I can confirm that I can maintain confidentiality for the closed part of the meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a mover to close the meeting? Councillor Lee. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Love. All those in favour? That's carried 8-0. The meeting is now closed to the public and live stream is to be ceased. Yeah. Thank you, councillors. The decision for item 19.1 is the alternate recommendation in attachment 3 was carried 6-2. I don't think that was the motion. Yeah. I will now close the meeting. The next ordinary council meeting will be held on the 26th of March 2025, and the meeting is staff. Thank you, ball boys. Oh, there's nothing worse when you've got a motion